Welcome to our special coverage of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the UK. I'm Mark Lynn, and with me is my colleague Amritpal Singh. Now today's visit, it indeed marks a historic bilateral milestone for prosperity and growth because India and the UK are all set to do big business. The proposed FTA is projected to increase bilateral trade by US dollars 34 billion annually by 2040.
And it's not just a quantum leap in trade, it is a strategic pivot. India and the United Kingdom are aligning more deeply across sectors: defense, climate, education, innovation, many others, with the UK-India Vision 2035 laying the groundwork for a long-term cooperation.
Let's get you the headlines to start with. India and the UK are set to exchange over 2,000 pages long trade agreement document during Prime Minister's UK visit.
Thailand closes all border points with Cambodia after two sides exchange fire. 11 Thai civilians, 1 soldier killed.
A Russian plane crashes in Russia's Far East. Nearly 50 people on board are feared dead.
So let's begin with the Prime Minister's visit to the United Kingdom. The Prime Minister arrived there yesterday. Today he's meeting the British Prime Minister, scripting a new beginning in the India-UK Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a two-day official visit, as I said, to the United Kingdom. He will hold wide-ranging discussions with his British counterpart, Keir Starmer, on the entire gamut of bilateral relations. The leaders will also exchange views on issues of regional and global importance. Prime Minister Modi will later call on King Charles III. During the visit, the two sides will also review the progress of the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership with specific focus on trade and economy, technology and innovation, defense and security, climate, health, education, and people-to-people ties. This is Prime Minister Modi's 4th visit to the United Kingdom since assuming office. He had previously visited the United Kingdom in 2015, 2018, and then he was there in 2021 for the COP26 summit in Glasgow.
Well, we are joined by our colleague, our correspondent, Gautam Roy. He is there in London. Gautam, today is the big day. I mean, we are seeing it as a milestone day for economic relations between India and the UK. Run us through the schedule of the Prime Minister.
Well, good morning to you from London, or a place that is on the outskirts of London. I will not specify. But I can tell you, Mark, that the Prime Minister's day begins very early, just about in a few moments really from now. He's going to be moving out, and then his first order of the day is at Chequers Estate. That's the country retreat of Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who's the current leader of the country, the executive head, and where they will have a walkthrough in the garden. They'll have a photo opportunity. Then, of course, the bilateral meetings will take place. Then there is the exchange of the FTA. That is the much-awaited event that the entire world would be watching, not just the people in UK and India. And the leaders are going to make press statements as well, because they're going to be covering a very wide range of subjects. As Amritpal mentioned a short while back, India and UK also share a vision that they have projected earlier as well in a vision statement that was till 2030. So that's likely to be extended till 2035, and that will have extensive portions dealing with all kinds of multifaceted ties that India and the UK have, from issues of security, defense, technology, renewable energy, perhaps critical minerals as well, critical tech. So a lot can be expected to unfold apart from that FTA, which is huge in itself. Then, of course, the Prime Minister will also be calling on His Majesty King Charles III. That will be at his country estate at Sandringham. That's a little later in the day because before that, the PM will be also hosting him for lunch. And then there will be that departure that will be taking place for Malé as well in the Maldives, because this is a twin visit, one here in the UK, which is, of course, could be considered a gateway to Europe as well if things get sorted out after the efforts that Keir Starmer has been making with the EU as well. So lots of promising things to unfold once this FTA takes place, because it will take India and UK ties to a different level. It will have a lot of spin-off effects as well, because India is engaged with a lot of other countries in, well, let's say, groupings of countries as well in such FTA negotiations. This is a SEPA, this is a comprehensive economic partnership agreement. So it covers almost everything that these countries send to each other, be it goods or services, and tariffs coming down. So big message to the man across in the White House as well.
All right. Gautam, I'll request you to stay on. Let's take a look at this report that you filed, about explaining what really this 2,000-page long trade agreement is, which the two prime ministers will be signing in a little while, as you said. Let's take a look at this report that Gautam filed from London. All right, I'll request my producer to run the FTA explainer, please.
In the changing dynamics of global trade.
All right. Let's take a look at this report in which Gautam explains what this 2,000-page trade document called the FTA, that's to be signed in a little while by the two prime ministers, is all about.
Of global trade, one term frequently comes up: FTA, or Free Trade Agreement. What is this agreement? How does it boost the economies of nations? And which countries has India signed such agreements with? Let's explain in detail. An FTA is a trade agreement between two or more countries. There's reduction in customs duties, relaxations in trade regulations, concessions on tariffs for goods and services. These include topics like intellectual property, investment, and government procurement. Under a free trade agreement, two countries or more agree to reduce tariffs or customs duties on each other's products and services, eliminate non-tariff barriers, and facilitate easier access to each other's markets. FTAs make trade more competitive, boost exports, attract investments, and rapidly create jobs. So far, India has entered into FTAs with several countries and organizations, including the 10-country organization ASEAN, Japan, Korea, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Australia, UAE, Mauritius, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, European Group EFTA, which includes Norway, Switzerland, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. India currently has over 15 active FTAs, or comprehensive trade agreements, through which it has expanded its export reach in international markets. These agreements have significantly helped India's MSME sector grow and provide global recognition to the services sector, particularly IT, education, and healthcare. The benefits of India's FTAs are clearly reflected in the numbers. 90% of India's exports to the UAE became duty-free, including textiles, gems, and pharmaceuticals. A 12% increase in India's exports to the UAE has been registered in the first year itself. A 25% rise in FDI inflows to India has taken place due to the Australia Agreement. A 15% increase in India's textile exports to ASEAN countries has also been achieved post the FTA. Agricultural exports have grown, boosting rural incomes. Duty reductions on sugar and tea in Mauritius increased agricultural exports. India benefits from technology and knowledge transfer. The Australian government has been highly beneficial for green energy, and standardization and certification of Indian products in European countries has become simpler. In summary, an FTA is not just a trade agreement, it's a strategic partnership that bridges diplomacy, economics, and national interests. Gautam Roy's report, London, DD India.
And let me introduce you to our guest on the program. Ambassador Pinak Ranjan Chakravarti is a former secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, who was the Secretary of Economic Relations. And Professor Abhijit Das is the former head of the WTO Center of the IIFT. Gautam continues to be with us also from near London. Let me first turn to Professor Das, because we look at the FTA as a big deal today. How does this deal, in fact, address certain structural imbalances? Because after all, it's taken a lot of time in negotiating, and supply chains have changed over the last few years, I mean, because of various other issues. So how does this address those kind of issues first, sir?
Thank you, Mark, for having me on your program. At a time when global trade is seeing turbulence on account of actions of US President, the FTA between India and UK gives a very important signal to the global community that two of the largest economies can come together, can find common ground, and can trade under a regime which is rules-based and not power-based. So that is the first very important point to bear in mind, that this FTA comes at a juncture when rules-based trading regime is sought to be thrown out of the window. Another important aspect of this FTA is likely to be the shift in the approach of countries from economic efficiency to resilient supply chains. Now, we haven't seen the text of the FTA, but it may not be inaccurate to speculate that at least some part of the FTA will have elements that might strengthen resilient supply chains between India and UK. So let me stop at that, and maybe we can discuss further details about the FTA subsequently.
Okay, let me bring in Ambassador Pinak Chakravarti. Deepak, can I bring in my producer? Can I bring in Ambassador Pinak Chakravarti? Yes, I can see him on the screen. Ambassador, before we get into the details of the FTA and start discussing what benefits it has, and as more details emerge, that what it contains, why did it take so long between India and the United Kingdom to agree on the FTA? This has been in the talks for a very long time. What were the sticking points?
Well, I can tell you as an insider that firstly, that FTAs are not new or sudden initiatives. These take time. I have myself been involved in some of the negotiations, not in the UK, but when I was in service. It does take time, particularly when you have a large array of items and tariff lines to be negotiated. So you have to do it line by line. And that is why I am hearing that this FTA agreement is probably around 2,000 pages. So you can imagine the kind of detail that we go into. Then, of course, there are demands from both sides. Okay, look, please reduce this on this, because both sides are seeking greater markets. And that is what happens when you negotiate an FTA. That you give some, you take some, and then you arrive at an equilibrium where you feel that finally when you feel that, yes, this is okay for me, and the other side also feels that this is okay for them, then only you have an equilibrium of mutual benefit. And that is where FTAs come into play. Now, FTAs were there even during the WTO regime, the MFN regime and things like that. But of course, as Professor Das said, that now that regime is being broken down. Basically, it is being overthrown by Trump's attempt to impose a tariff war on various countries. So I think, and that is why countries have shifted to negotiating FTAs or tariff agreements, as as many people call it. So I think that is the fundamental basis on which FTAs are built. And of course, it's a strategic move. India and UK have a long-standing relationship. There is a very vibrant diaspora in the UK, and many of them are in business. And India will get access on many issues. But those are the micro details of the FTA.
Okay. Let me bring in Gautam. Gautam, what's the sense that you're getting in London? What message is it sending to the Americans? When the Prime Minister had visited Canada, for the G7, he had a meeting with Prime Minister Carney. Though the frosty relationship between the two countries, the same parties come back to power, but they talk trade. Here, they've cleared the document which they'll be signing. What message is it sending to the Americans?
Well, Amrit, I don't need to say much because I can just read out what some of the British publications have been saying. In fact, this very day, when the FTA is set to be exchanged, The Guardian says in the headline, Indian Prime Minister makes official UK visit to sign landmark trade deal. And the report, the first paragraph itself says India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting London to sign a landmark free trade agreement between his country and the UK. A pact views as a political and economic prize and global trade tensions unleashed by US President Donald Trump for Britain eager to score a post-Brexit win. The deal is the most economically significant trade agreement since leaving the European Union. And another article in The Guardian itself, so look at the kind of space that it's getting here in a major UK publication. The headline is, People Said It Would Never Been Done. That's within quotes. UK and India trade agreement defies expectations. Let me just tell you what the Standard is saying. Keir Starmer and Narendra Modi set to sign off on Britain-India trade deal. And now it's said the Prime Minister and his Indian counterpart also agreed at their meeting to tackle some other issues as well that have been irritants like illegal migration and organized crime. The UK-India trade deal is understood to be the largest of its kind in its economic impact on Britain. Some publications are saying it's worth 4.8 billion British pounds to the UK. Others saying 6 billion GBP. So it's huge. It's absolutely huge. It's major for both the UK looking for a win after trying to also make efforts to mend fences with the European Union. And it sends out a huge message to, of course, as I have just read, to Donald Trump as well. India is working on a trade deal with the US too. So, and it says that this particular government of Keir Starmer has shown to the world that it can also be nimble on its feet when it comes to making deals such as these. So a message to the EU too, because we're working on a trade deal with them too.
All right. I'll bring in Professor Das. Professor Das, did the American actions hasten the signing of this deal?
I have no doubt that the turmoil, the turbulence unleashed by the American action has concentrated minds amongst countries world over who are trying to hasten finalization of trade deals, not only between India and UK. I would even go a step further and say between India and the European Union as well. So for a few things, we may have to actually thank President Trump and his rather unconventional action on the trade front.
Indeed. Ambassador Pinak Ranjan Chakravarti, when we talk about trade deals and the length of time that goes into them, what are the concerns about, tariffs are easy to figure out, but the non-tariff barriers, especially with Europe and London as well, I mean with UK, what are the kind of non-tariff barriers that one has to deal with?
Well, there are many. Let's take an example of, let's say, what has happened recently with Bangladesh. We have, for example, closed some of our land borders, land checkposts, and said that Bangladeshi exports of, let's say, X, Y, and Z will have to come through Mumbai. Now, what does that do? That sort of adds a lot of transportation cost. And without violating any rule, you have actually made Bangladeshi exports more expensive. So this is a kind of non-tariff barrier that is sometimes used. There are other barriers of all kinds. For example, the Europe is thinking or has already applied carbon tax. Now you can argue that that is good for climate change, etc. I believe even aircraft have to pay a special tax because they spew out carbon because they use fossil fuels. So these are some of the non-tariff barriers that are used. There may be other non-tariff barriers, particularly I think one of the most important ones are the phytosanitary standards, that you will have to meet a certain standard, and that requires laboratory tests, all kinds of things, and then that delays the shipment, etc., till you get that certificate, the phytosanitary certificates. These are, for example, on food items. So many of these things are applied by nations to protect their market. This is basically what we call a protectionist measure. Now, India has been accused by many, and particularly by Trump, that we have very high tariffs. To an extent, that is true. And so hence, tariff negotiations in an FTA are become important. But we have to be careful which sectors we are opening up, because we are a developing economy, and our small and medium enterprises can be hit very badly if we suddenly open up to a flood of imports from these countries.
Yes.
Hence, of course, we have to be careful, and I believe that India normally sort of looks at protecting some of its sectors which are vulnerable.
Ambassador Chakrabarti, let me stop you there because our correspondent Gautam has to attend a function. So let me just go across to him quickly before he leaves. Gautam, the business community, how enthused are they about this FTA, the proposed FTA? And there's going to be a meeting as well, isn't it, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Keir Starmer with the business community. So you can put that into perspective for us.
Well, yes, certainly. Mark, I mentioned that this trade deal, this CEPA, will bring with itself a lot of spin-offs. So investments, now already India and the UK are tremendously invested in each other. Cumulatively, both exceed 20 billion British pounds. But as far as investments go, there's a Grant Thornton business report that I read, which said that in a survey that they did, 42% of the companies which do not have a presence in India right now want to have a presence now in India, especially after this FTA, within the next 2 years. 90% of the companies which already have a presence in India want to expand their presence there. And over 70% of the respondents said they're looking to do more business with India as well. So investments, that's a huge spin-off that could happen. Because, this FTA is not only holding a huge amount of promise for Britain with the scope of boosting its exports to India by 60% going through the decades as their tariffs incrementally come down. They've been high, yes. For example, liquor, the famous Scotch of Scotland, is right now tariffed at 150%. It straightaway goes down to 75%. And over the years, over the course of a decade, it will come down to 40%. In the case of India, all the goods and services that it exports to the UK in value, not all 99% of them actually, but in value, 100% tariffs to zero. So that's huge. Major boost. I mean, the tariffs are not high in the case of a lot of goods and services where the UK is concerned for Indian goods and services. But still, in some cases, they go up to 70%. So that will come down to zero. So look at the value in that, and look at the kind of message that sends across to everyone looking to, well, the entire global trade is being reordered because of the shift from globalization to protectionism. And India has in the past been in that mode as well, because as Ambassador Pinaki Chakrabarti mentioned, we are a developing economy, and we have our own domestic industry to protect, our farmers to protect. But here, everything is taken care of in this over 2,000 page FTA. Our interests are completely secure. We've not made any compromises for our dairy, for our farm produce, for our processed goods, for our fisheries, our women, the industries that women are involved in, or MSMEs. Everything is protected. A lot of these non-tariff barriers, like the carbon border tax, they'll come down for our goods. And of course, there will be lesser regulatory barriers as well.
All right, Gautam, I'm told you have to go for the events that will be unfolding there, the Prime Minister's engagements. We let you go. Many thanks for joining us for the moment. And Gautam spoke with India's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Vikram Doraiswamy, about the prospects of the Prime Minister's visit, including the much anticipated trade deal and how it will enhance the comprehensive strategic partnership between the two nations. Listen in.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on his fourth visit to the United Kingdom from the 23rd to the 24th of July. India and the UK have extensive relations. This is a comprehensive bilateral partnership. How is it going to be expanded further this time around? Let's find out from Vikram Doraiswamy. He's India's High Commissioner to the UK. Thank you for joining us, High Commissioner. What can you tell us about the agenda this time around for the Prime Minister?
Well, this is a short but very focused visit. The Prime Minister's agenda is really to push the relationship to the next level. The focus is on essentially taking forward the relationship on core verticals that we see as forward-looking, futuristic pillars of the relationship. So that includes the technology domain, where the UK and India have been strong partners on something called the Technology Security Initiative, which was launched last year. We are also partners on developing our trade relationship, which has been growing along at a pretty steady pace. We also look at education as a major part of the mix. As you probably know, not only do we have a large number of students here, we also have the largest number possibly of universities opening campuses in India from the UK. I think the idea that India is now open for partnerships with quality universities to meet the enormous demand for high quality education that Indians have traditionally had, I think that's an important part of the piece.
All in all, what kind of a message do you think the leaders of these two countries, two democracies, which have extensive links, not just through the present times, but going back centuries, would be sending out to the world in the kind of times that we live in, where you not only have conflicts in different parts of the world and all kinds of barriers coming up, even when it comes to the movement of people, and India and UK have very vibrant ties there, 1.8 billion strong diaspora here.
I think the message that we'd like to convey, that the leadership would like to convey, is that fourth largest economy in the world and the sixth largest economy in the world are doing business together, that we see the process of making it easier to do business, making it easier to invest in each other's country, making it easier for legal and practical means of having qualified people travel to each other's countries and thereby support businesses. All of these are good things, and that's a message in and of itself.
Great. Thank you for speaking to DD India, High Commissioner.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, let's turn to Professor Das once again. Professor Das, how does this FTA or proposed FTA help the sectors that India is good at? I mean, we look at comparative advantage all the time, isn't it? So let's say textiles, gems and jewelry, pharmaceuticals, marine products, leather, all these. Are we going to get a quantum leap here?
As I mentioned earlier, we are still awaiting the fine print of the text, but going by what we've been reading in the media and what we've been hearing, our textile and clothing exports, leather exports, gems and jewelry, marine sector exports, they will get a boost on account of the tariff reduction. In particular, labor-intensive sectors such as textiles and clothing, our exporters do face competitive disadvantage on account of their competitors getting access into the UK at zero tariffs or very low tariffs. So the FTA will, to a large extent, level that playing field. But let me also sound a note of caution here. the point which Ambassador Pinaki Chakrabarti mentioned about CBAM. Now, CBAM has the potential to erode some of the benefits which we might have otherwise derived from the FTA. So we will have to see the fine print on what exactly does the FTA say about CBAM. If there are no disciplines on CBAM, or if India doesn't get a carve out from application of CBAM, then I'm afraid the promise which the FTA might have in terms of boosting sectors of our export interest, some of that might get curtailed.
Okay, it's being touted as a deal, because of the very size of the market and economy and how it opens up trade access. But then, the measures which are called protectionist measures, Professor Das, say if duty on cars becomes cheaper, what happens to your local car market? What happens to your Mahindras and Tatas? If whiskey becomes cheaper, liquor becomes cheaper, you'll have all kinds of scotch, which is good for whiskey drinkers. But what happens to the Indian industry, which perhaps needs some hand-holding because there is a very different playing field there?
I completely agree with you. And that's the reason why in the automobile sector, for example, the tariffs will come down over a transition period. And more importantly, there will be a quota which will be given. Now, again, we do not know the details of the extent to which the tariffs will come down or what's the size of the quota. But those are measures utilized in free trade agreements to protect the interests of the domestic producers. And let's bear in mind that the automobile sector accounts for almost half of our manufacturing GDP. So we have to keep a very careful note on what concessions India grants to UK in the automobile sector, for the very simple reason that we may have to give similar, if not larger, concessions to both European Union and US. So to that extent, what concessions we give to the automobile sector to UK will set the floor. And that is an area where we will have to be very, very cautious.
Okay. Professor Das, the per capita income of India is substantially lower than that of UK. And of course, there are a number of professionals who would like perhaps to improve their standard of living. And what do you think about mobility and the opportunities that this agreement will probably provide for skilled professionals to attain a better, job profile if they work in the UK? And is there any opportunity also for UK personnel to come and work in India so that, there could be an equitable expansion of the market size, especially in the services sector?
A very, very important question, Mark. Again, going by what we've heard or read in the recent weeks, the agreement promises to enhance mobility of services professionals through multiple channels. First and foremost, easing the movement of inter-corporate transferees, independent service providers, those will be an important aspect. Another important aspect is likely to be something called the Double Contribution Convention, whereby if Indian professionals pay social security in India, they will not have to make a contribution if they work in UK for up to 3 years. So these are important initiatives which might be contained in the FTA. Then we also hear about a quota of 1,800 visas for very niche category of service providers such as yoga teachers or chefs. Of course, 1,800 might not be a very big number, but it is a starting point. So in a nutshell, services is likely to be an area when it comes to mobility where India should be poised to garner gains through this FTA with UK.
All right. Let me bring in Ambassador Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarti. Ambassador Chakrabarti, when you look at the country, where are the jobs in the United Kingdom? At one point in time, they wanted our doctors, they wanted our nurses with their NHS in shambles. where do they have the jobs? They stand to gain with the huge market that we are, but where do we stand to gain?
Well, in a growing economy, there'll always be jobs. And Professor Das mentioned chefs, for example. And, you know, these kind of jobs are labor intensive. And Indians are wanted there because we have the skills. And hence, I don't think, I'm not saying that there will be an enormous opportunity for jobs, but Indians will find jobs in certain sectors which are being mentioned. And I think the numbers are not very impressive. I mean, the numbers that we hear. But I think some jobs will be created. And then, of course, I think that is not the main thing. Although we have always focused on mobility, you know, mode 4 of the agreement, WTO agreement. And that because we have the skills, we have the people, so we want the services. And, you know, services exports in India probably are as much as goods export today, if not more. And so I think that is a very important area for the Indian economy, that we provide a certain levels of services, and we can compete with the best in the world and provide that at a cheaper rate. So I think employment in the UK may not be too much, because UK itself has now a lot of migrants, and there is a backlash building up on migration.
Right.
So I think this will have to be taken as it is in the FTA, and we'll have to build on that in the future.
Ambassador Chakrabarti, we look at the world as it's transitioning into, an age of critical technologies, AI and all that. So to what extent do you think this FTA will provide for this sort of transition and speeding up, the digital mode, the digital transactions to a large extent? India is now a leader in the world as far as digital transactions go.
Well, I think digital transactions are the area where any two countries can cooperate. I think with an agreement which looks at various issues in such a transaction, and it can be done. It's not a big deal, and as long as you allow mobility, India, for example, allows foreign exchange remittances to go out for various reasons. There are limits, of course, but I think that will become a very good method of transferring money, and I think, but it has to be protected against certain dangers like scamsters, etc. But the digital world that we are entering is, of course, the main thing that we hear about is the AI, or artificial intelligence, and that is taking over. And India is also investing in that, because it is technology. The march of technology we have known through history cannot be stopped. And whether it is good or bad technology, it cannot be stopped if it has negative effects. Remember when the nuclear fission was discovered, then fusion later, we thought it would be an endless source of energy. But people also knew that you could make nuclear bombs with that. So every technology has both aspects. And I think this is a very important thing that we have to learn and keep in mind, that technology has to be used to your advantage. And you have to then curb the negative aspects of that. AI is very important. India will have to build on it. And I think because of our software prowess that we have shown already, we should be able to play a very major role in that.
Well, Ambassador Chakrabarti, there is also obviously a strategic aspect to the critical technologies. After all, those who have it will be ahead of the curve, isn't it? So, and cooperation in it requires you to be in an exclusive club to a large extent. India, of course, is also trying to be the voice of the global south, and that we want to share our technology as well with the global south. So how does this balance out, with this kind of state of play, in a sense, where those who have the technologies want to stay isolated, while India wants to bridge the gap?
And if I can add a context to that question, Ambassador, will this FDA, to whatever extent it can, go in, seeing that technology transfer happens, or they would have their reservations when it comes to critical technologies?
Very, very important question, because having dealt with Indo-US technology transfer agreement of, I think, 1984, when I was working in MEA, I know that technologies are, particularly critical technologies and more advanced technologies are guarded very fiercely by whoever has it, particularly the developed countries in the West. And we also know that many of these technologies are developed in the private sector. So when we used to talk to the American government or any other government, they would say, look, we don't own this technology. So we can have a government-to-government agreement, but they do have export control regimes. And hence it was a government-to-government arrangement that certain specified technology or imports, you will be expediting the export clearance. That is, of course, in the past. But that was a beginning. And I think India, as we all know, has been a target of technology denial regimes till India broke out of it by the nuclear tests and joining various other organizations, technology control organization, like say the MTCR and things like that. So I think that has always been a tussle. If I develop a technology in India, and which has global ramifications, or I can make a lot of money out of it, it is very unlikely that I will be transferring it to somebody who will then use it and compete with me. So that is the real world, how it operates in terms of technology. Hence, it is so important to have your own R&D, base, etc., and perhaps spend more money to develop your own technologies, which then we don't have to depend on other countries. The other aspect of technology transfer is the IPR, the intellectual property rights, on which also we have come under pressure many times in the past. But we have now arrived at a consensus. The TRIPS agreement was done, and we follow that. And now patents, for example, in pharmaceuticals. But the pharmaceutical companies also play games. Okay. For example, this, after a 20-year patent, they will change a little bit and say, oh, I want a new patent for the same medicine.
All right, Ambassador, can I stop you for a moment? The Prime Minister has met Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. These visuals that we are beaming to you from just outside Chequers Estate, just outside London. The two Prime Ministers met this morning. This was a little while back. There's about a 4.5 hours difference. So it is morning there in London. So Prime Minister being received by Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He has a short one-on-one meeting with him. After that, the two sides go in, as Gautam was saying, for signing of the...
You're going for the delegation level talks?
The delegation is later, I understand.
Okay, sorry. The bilateral meeting
Yes, the bilateral meeting, and then the signing of the FTA, and the other agreements, if there are any, and the press statements. Right. And then later, the two delegations sit and meet for extensive talks.
I see.
So
I mean, from what I've been reading, it appears that this is going to be about 1 hour long, this meeting, because they're going to have the comprehensive talk, which you were talking about, not only the FTA, but there are so many other aspects.
Yeah, you have a comprehensive strategic partnership, so which encompasses all areas, ranging from defense to trade.
Let's turn to Professor Das once again. Professor Das, there is always this concern that we need to protect our dairy industry. Is that, an overstated concern? Because, I mean, we are the largest producer of milk in the world. There shouldn't be any reason why we shouldn't compete.
Mark, it's certainly not an overstated concern. Let's look at the employment generated by the dairy sector. That is substantial. Let's also not forget that the dairy sector in the developed world, be it in European Union, be it in UK, be it in United States, is heavily subsidized. So if we allow subsidized dairy products to flood our Indian markets, I think it would be highly unfair on our farmers. It would result in devastation, and I'm not exaggerating. And it's for this reason that the government has decided to protect the dairy sector. And if we look at our various free trade agreements, in particular with Australia, Australia has huge strength in the dairy sector. We did not give concessions. So I will not be surprised if in the FTA with UK, in respect of most of the dairy products, we don't open up. Of course, possibility exists that for some premium dairy products could be, let us say, high protein dairy products, or maybe high-end cheese. There could be some tariff concessions or some opening, but to my mind, that will not have a devastating impact on our Indian dairy sector. So to put a long story short, it's for very right reasons, for employment, for making sure that our farmers are not pitted against unfair subsidized dairy imports, that the government protects this sector in various free trade agreements.
But Professor Das, this argument can be argued the other way around also. Say your agri sector stands to gain. You get direct access to their market. You have ambitious target of looking at agri exports by 2030. They stand to lose. You give a lot of subsidies. For example, the state that I come from, Punjab, farmers don't pay any electricity bill. So you get various subsidies on agriculture, on fertilizers, on seeds, etc. And so it can be argued the other way around as well. And they would put in their restrictions as well.
Amritpal, excellent point you've made. Let me give you two very simple facts. If you look at the per farmer subsidy which an Indian farmer gets and which a farmer in the developed world gets, there is no comparison. The developed world, the farmer in the developed world would be getting anywhere between 40 to 50 times the subsidy which an Indian farmer gets. So while we are giving huge subsidies, no doubt, through free electricity, free irrigation, let's not forget the number of farmers who are getting it. So per farmer subsidy is very low in India compared to the developed world, number one. Second point.
No, you're saying the subsidy is much lower here.
Per farmer subsidy and total subsidy is much lower.
Per capita subsidy may be lower, but the fact of the matter is you have so much land, you have so much agriculture, you're an agri-based economy. They hardly have land, and out of the land, how much is cultivable? So your products, because of the scale, you will flood their market. So as in, what I'm trying to say is, they would put their restrictions in place as well.
Absolutely, and that's the point which Ambassador mentioned. He mentioned sanitary, phytosanitary measures. Let me spend a couple of minutes on this issue. What happens is there is international organization called Codex Alimentarius, which sets standards. Countries who follow these standards are then presumed to comply with WTO requirements. Unfortunately, most developed countries set standards which are much more stringent than Codex standards, most likely even in absence of sufficient scientific justification. Our exporters, our farmers will find it almost impossible to meet these stringent standards. So these stringent standards, ostensibly for protecting health and animal and plant life, really are protectionist, and those are the real barriers to our exports. So if we have ambitions of expanding our agriculture exports to the developed world, the first hurdle that we will face will be the stringent SPS standards in these countries.
All right. Okay. Mark, can we take a break from the economic issues?
Sure.
Let's broaden this discussion a bit. Let's go to Ambassador Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarti. Ambassador, anywhere when he thinks about London, you've been a career diplomat, he thinks about the Kalistanis carrying the flags outside the Indian High Commission there. whenever a prime minister is visiting, or even when the prime minister is not visiting. Is the prime minister likely to raise this issue with the British prime minister, saying this is enough of a headache with us, address it, and it is a part of the broader counterterrorism cooperation that we have?
Your question reminds me of my posting in London soon after the Operation Blue Star.
Acha.
And I served there, I was sent there as to deal with the press and information and something to do with what you just mentioned.
Well, what were you then? First Secretary PIC? I mean, you were
was
handling
the
the
first secretary, yes.
All right, okay.
And I remember that was the kind of beginnings of this trouble that we have had since then. Yes, the Kalistanis are there in UK, in Canada, in Australia, and the US. And we often hear from these countries that, oh, they have freedom of expression, etc. But many of them have got into, I think, drug trade, and they are sometimes in bed with the ISI of Pakistan. Essentially, we view it as something against our national interest. It's a secessionist movement which we will not tolerate. So we will, I think, take it up with the UK government. Look what happened with Canada when we took it up, and we almost came to almost on the verge of breaking relations with Canada. And fortunately now it's coming back to normal under a new prime minister who seems less dependent on the Khalistani lobby, as we call it in Canada, and is willing to move forward. And I laud that effort. But in UK too, they are there. I've seen so many demonstrations in front of our High Commission from time to time. And now, of course, they are funded by the ISI. There's no doubt about it. They also get funding through their drug and criminal activities. And now these are all brought to the attention of the UK government. And I was in fact talking to a friend of mine and some colleagues. I said, I wonder where the Khalistanis are going to protest, in front of which building or where in London when our prime minister is there. Because I believe that's bound to happen. And of course, the British police will keep them at a distance, etc., because they also need permission to demonstrate. But these permissions have been granted. But in a strategic sense, in my view, the Khalistani, aspect is used as a kind of leverage against India by these countries, because they know India gets worried and irritated by this, and so they use it as a leverage.
No, okay. Can I stop you here and ask you something from a very layman perspective? They use it as a leverage, yes. They use it as a handle to contain India. But isn't it a headache for, say, the Metropolitan Police? Because now this right-wing Hindu brigade has also, come up and they keep jostling on the streets. Hadn't the Brits had enough of these, Indians coming from some faraway country and taking over their streets and haggling each other?
Well, yes, but then if you constantly take this position that there is freedom of speech, but to what extent you allow that freedom of speech to go? Of course, they will take action against criminal activities. But waving a flag and shouting slogans, etc., I think that the UK government cannot stop it, nor can we in India. That is, this is one of the, let's say, fundamental aspects of democracy. But then when it comes to criminal activity,
climbing of walls of the High Commission, bringing down the Indian flag, etc.
Well, these are criminal activities. That's what I'm trying to say. That when you commit a crime, for example, getting into the High Commission is for example, a violation of diplomatic immunity. And UK government is liable to prosecute these people and punish them. So I think, as I said, we must make a distinction. At least the UK makes that distinction that there is freedom of speech, so they can say these things. Whereas we take the position that these are secessionist movements, tied to criminal networks, etc., etc. So I think there is a difference of opinion here, and I think that will be raised because if the UK and India have to work together, we have to take care of each other's concerns. And I think the UK government would do well to do that, and that not allow these Khalistani goons to sort of, spoil the atmosphere. There is, of course, another irritant we have with them is that London seems to be the world's capital for all, those who escape from committing financial crimes. Because, again, the fact is that they bring all their money into London or wherever into UK. And that is a great source of funding for the UK economy. And so they tolerate these people. Then, of course, they hide behind the judiciary saying that what can we do? It's the judiciary that has to take care of it. You go and fight it out in the courts, etc. And you know how long these judicial processes take. So we all know that. So I think these are all issues that we will raise. And question of extradition, for example, of criminals. These are some of the issues that we will have to raise.
Okay.
Because we have to keep up the pressure on these people.
Okay.
Otherwise, they will be working against our interests.
I want to come back to the Khalistani question, though you broadened it, saying there are financial criminals as well. One thing is the crime. They'll say that if there is no crime happening, and if they raise flags and protest, there is not much we can really do. It's a part of the freedom of speech. But what about the radicalization that happens? I come from the faith, so I can tell you with some knowledge that there is very subtle radicalization which happens in the gurdwaras. Invoking 84 and all. 84 is long past now, Ambassador. The new generation, even my generation, doesn't have any memories of 84. We were just too small. My parents' generation may just have it, but India's moved on. So, but there is a generation, there are two generations that have come after 84, and they're still beating the same drum. So, do the Indians need to tell the Westerners that this is radicalization? You're not looking at step 1, 2, 3, 4. When the crime happens at step 10, then you will say we'll take action. But what about step 1 to step 9?
Well, some of it is radicalization, as you say, but it is done with a vested interest. You must realize that. And a section of them will get radicalized, like that has happened mostly in a large scale in Canada. But in UK, the radical section may not be that large, but they have a vested interest in propping this up. They make money out of it, by the way. And as I said, some of them make money out of the drug trade or criminal things.
Activities, yes.
We know that some of the criminals escape there and they order hit jobs in India. And we have evidence which has been provided to them that I'm sitting here in London and I'm ringing up somebody ki usko jaake maar do ya usse paise mango. So this is the kind of criminal activity that is going on from this country. And that is where we need to cooperate. And we do. We have intelligence cooperation. We share intelligence on the issue. But it goes on. And, it comes down usually when countries cooperate. But, to eliminate it is very, very difficult.
Okay.
Indeed. Let's once again bring back the area of focus about economic cooperation. Professor Das, India has invested plenty of money in the UK. We have about 1,000 Indian companies operating there, employing over 100,000 people, investing about $2 billion US. And India is in fact the 6th largest total investments, about $36 billion. So quite a sizable sum. Would you consider that this is something that will build the momentum in a sense for the FTA as well, because after all, a lot of them would like to do business with India?
You're very correct, Mark. This will create the momentum, and when initially I talked of supply chains, investment of Indians in UK, thereafter wanting to export the products to India and maybe to other parts of the world from India, can create a very vibrant supply chain. And this would have been an important driver of the FTA between the two sides.
So is investment also an important part of this FTA?
No doubt investment has been an integral part of the discussions, but what I understand is that the investment aspects are being negotiated separately from the trade aspect, and perhaps the investment track remains to be completed.
Okay, I want to ask you about education. In fact, the High Commissioner was saying there is a lot of universities. Now they don't want Indian students traveling there and studying. They want to go a step further. They see a huge market here who cannot go there. So collaborate with an Indian university, give them education here, works well for the Indian students. The cost of study comes down and cost of living, etc., comes down. But it's a huge market for the UK universities.
You're very correct, Amritpal. It's India will be a huge market, and hence we have to see what openings we have promised to the UK in the FTA, in the education services. And this can be mutually beneficial for the Indian students, for the UK universities. Of course, bearing in mind that we should be allowing only well-reputed, well-established UK universities to partner and establish institutions in India.
Because there has to be quality control on that. If your Oxfords and Cambridges are coming here, all very well. But if number 14th Street of Southall University comes here, then and partners with some XYZ college here, which is again of doubtful credentials, there is where you're fooling a lot of your people, a lot of your students, because there is a huge student market and not everybody gets into the colleges that they would ideally like to get into. So quality check on that, would that be factored in?
Absolutely, that should be factored in, and that's where the role of University Grants Commission would come in, and I guess that's also where the role of AICTE would come in. Which US institutions to be granted approval to establish campuses in India.
Okay. Indeed. Let's turn to Ambassador Chakrabarti once again. Ambassador Chakrabarti, when we look at a lot of realignment taking place because of tariffs, would you say that this FTA was going to influence, let's say, geopolitics of India's relations with the EU, the US, China going forward?
I think yes, because trade cannot be dissociated from geopolitics. And I think it is very much an integral part of geopolitics. And the current world and the current geopolitical trends that we see, in fact, trade is playing a most important role in terms of the tariff war and things like that. But this agreement between the fourth and the fifth largest economies will send a signal. We have now recently seen that the US has finalized trade agreements with Japan, with Indonesia. These large countries, large economies, and hence I think they will also take a look at this when it is published or the highlights are published, and the trade negotiations are going on with the US as well. For example, so it will act as what shall I say, either an incentive for doing doing a better deal, or a disincentive. Look, let us not scupper this deal because of certain certain ideological sort of considerations. Okay. Because large economies have to keep in mind the value chains, that they do a lot of business with each other, and you cannot just scuttle it and scupper this whole arrangement, by insisting on certain unreasonable sort of demands.
Okay. Ambassador, request you to stay on. Let's shift focus to another very significant component of the relationship. That's people, the Indian diaspora that's there. And the streets of London came alive as thousands of Indian community members turned up to welcome Prime Minister Modi as he arrived there in the United Kingdom.
In fact, Prime Minister Modi received a grand welcome from the Indian community, and PM Modi also interacted with members of the diaspora. Members of the diaspora expressed joy and admiration after meeting Prime Minister, calling the moment surreal and emotionally overwhelming.
So this is the Assamese Bihu dance, which was performed by the Indian diaspora, especially for the Prime Minister, as he arrived in the United Kingdom. Not just Bihu, but the famous Gujarati Garba was also performed.
It's amazing that he has come, and it's amazing that we all got a chance to see him so personally, and the work he's doing is extraordinary. He's uniting all of us, and he's doing for whatever we need to do for Bharat Mata, we will help him do it. It's amazing inspiration he is for all of us. We want to be like part of it. We want to encourage him, and we want to just whatever we can do, a little step to make it happen, whatever he thinks and what are his plans.
We are basically the common people of Odisha, and we are really happy to showcase that to Modi ji. Super excited. Thank you for coming to UK. Keep on visiting more.
I think we are very happy to see Indian Prime Minister in the UK, and we are part of Maharashtra Mandal London, and we play Dhol Tasha Group. It's one of the oldest society that we have in London, and we are here to represent the Maharashtra tradition.
It was fantastic to see him. Really, I couldn't get to touch him. We didn't shake hands, but very nice to see him close up.
I literally started crying. You can see the tears in my eyes, the joy of seeing him live, and then the work which he's doing for the country is amazing. Like, he made us proud wherever we go.
Okay, let me bring in Ambassador Pinak Chakrabarti. Ambassador, I've traveled to cover many visits of the Prime Minister abroad, and we see these kind of sound bites being given by the Indian diaspora who gathers, and reporters like me thrust mics in their faces and ask them that what was your reaction. Generally it is on these lines that I want to cry, or some Hindi bites are even more.
We had a little problem with Amrit's microphone, so he was talking about the kind of enthusiasm that the diaspora shows when Prime Minister Modi comes in. You've got your mic back.
Yes.
Let's go ahead. Go on.
All right. Now, can I have Ambassador Pinak Chakrabarti? These are visuals when the two Prime Ministers met. All right. Ambassador, we were playing those sound bites of the Indian diaspora, so I was saying that many of the visits that I have also covered, this is the general sentiment amongst the diaspora, giving these very melodramatic bites like, oh, I wanted to cry, I could see him in flesh and blood. What is about the man that the diaspora, that we see such kind of an outpouring?
Well, there is no doubt that Prime Minister Modi, his popularity with the diaspora is unparalleled. Mm-hmm. And in my long career, I have not seen so much of, enthusiasm in the diaspora.
And why is that so?
Sorry?
Why is that so? Why is he popular in the diaspora?
Well, I think they see him as a charismatic leader who has done a lot for the country, and they all feel for the country because they all originally are from here, whether they are OCIs or PIOs, and they live there, and anybody who goes out of India in the last since independence, they leave a bit of their heart in the country, and they have relations, they have all kinds of contacts and friends here. So this is normal. This is quite normal, and I think their enthusiasm is really sort of driven by the fact that the Indian Prime Minister is there, so there's nostalgia, there's all kinds of things that go into this mixture. And as we can see, they They turn out in large numbers. And I do recall that when Prime Minister Modi when I think David Cameron was the Prime Minister, and they had this huge gathering of Indians where both Prime Ministers spoke to them. And in fact, David Cameron, jokingly remarked that I wish I could get so many people to talk to in my political campaign. So these are some of the things that we have seen over the years, and the Prime Minister
Ambassador, let me
attention.
Can I then ask you, because you've had a long career in diplomacy when you were posted in our various missions abroad, did the previous prime ministers also interact like this? People lined up on the roads, or or would you just arrange an auditorium and he would give a speech, or is there a difference that you see?
Well, I see a difference because I've been on such visits before, and I've seen former Prime Minister interacting with the Indian community. The one thing is constant, and that is the Indian community is always contacted, and they are always there in some form or the other. Now, today, of course, we are seeing that has vastly expanded in terms of numbers, in terms of how they come out to greet the Prime Minister. So I think that has changed over the years. And I think this is also because we have, as a policy, come much closer to the Indian community or the people of Indian origin abroad. And if you remember that there was even a ministry of non-resident affairs, non-resident Indian affairs. Which was
overseas Indian affairs.
Overseas Indians, which was then, of course, merged with the Ministry of External Affairs, because ultimately it's the MEA which deals directly with the people. So I think that has become an integral part of our policy making, and that is why that department is now part of the Ministry of External Affairs and plays a very important role in these events.
Indeed. Ambassador Chakrabarti, when we look at the size of the diaspora also, it continues to increase, isn't it? And we see that this living bridge seems to connect very closely with India. Gautam spoke to some lords, sitting members of the House of Lords, but they seem to be expressing, their fondness for India, even though they are very clearly British citizens and very much a part of the British establishment. But, they talk about our Prime Minister, in a sense, talking about Prime Minister Modi, our country, India. So the roots matter, isn't it?
Yes, that is what I was saying, that you may leave India, but India doesn't leave you. That is the kind of a thing that we have always said. So I think that will remain as part of it. And don't forget that even the diaspora in, say, the Caribbean countries where PM recently visited, who went away from India maybe 200 years ago, when the British took them as bonded labor, indentured labor they used to be called, and the British resorted to it because slavery had been abolished. So they needed workers, and they took these poor, from the villages of various, Bihar, UP, various places, Andhra, and took them all the way to the Caribbean to work in mainly the sugar fields. And so I think even if you remember, when PM went there, the Prime Minister wore a sari, and the people came out in large numbers. So again, the nostalgia and the longing for your mother country will remain always. I think that is how we always grow up in this country. Wherever we are, we will remember and have a longing for our country, and for them, it is their origin, and this is where they came from. They can't forget that.
Okay, does it partly have to also do with your raising stature as a country? Because earlier you were where you were, and now, with your expanding footprint, your economic worth increasing, they see you as a good country to partner with beyond the emotion. Yes, you come from that country, you may have migrated, or your parents or grandparents or forefathers would have migrated, but now this is a country, especially the business community, can do business with.
Well, the main pillars of geopolitics has always been economic strength and military strength. And India has obviously been climbing that ladder rapidly in the last few decades. And we have reached a position where we have the fastest growing economy, we have a powerful military, we have an important space program, we are a nuclear power. So I think these things matter when people look at you. And these things matter. And we are one of the, let's say, an important pole in the so-called multipolar world that is still developing, I must say. It is multipolarity, as we call it. So I think that is also a factor. You are right.
Okay.
That factor also has to be has to be taken on board.
All right. Ambassador Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarti, I understand you have to go. Many thanks for joining us and being on the show and lending us your insights about the unfolding developments of the Prime Minister's visit to the United Kingdom. The Prime Minister is in the United Kingdom. He's currently meeting Prime Minister Keir Starmer at the Chequers House?
Chequers Estate, yes.
Chequers Estate,
right.
Just outside London.
Right.
The Prime Minister is on a two-day visit there. So the Prime Minister has a series of meetings. We'll be bringing you developments on that.
As in when we get there's going to be the
That's right.
signing of the agreements, and then there will be the press statement. So that's what we're next looking forward to. In the meantime, we have Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi joining us, Vice Chancellor of the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us. So you're really the expert on what this is all about, this big trade agreement. So far, we're just talking, the broad structures of it. But in terms of, helping our small and medium enterprises, how will this agreement, sort of give us that big boost, manufacturing sector for one?
No, I think very good that it's a trade agreement which has been signed by India in a situation wherein the entire world is in economic turmoil and uncertainty and unpredictability. What is going to happen? And therefore, if you see that some countries have levied a high levy on other countries, especially America, wherein on India they have levied 26% levies on the manufactured goods, making our product incompetitive in the international market, especially in the US, and not only US but maybe in other countries. So it is going to disrupt the entire well existing supply chains. This agreement particularly is one, the India-UK agreement, which has come after very complex and intense negotiations spanning over 3.5 years, wherein the whole period has been so long that even the UK had 4 prime ministers during the time.
Yes.
So there is no stability in UK but India is stable because we had only 1 prime minister, 1 finance minister, 1 commerce minister who have been leading all these negotiations. If you look into it, that under the deal 99% of the Indian tariff lines have been allowed duty-free access into the Euro market, which covers almost all the goods, and therefore this takes care of our labor intensive sectors which you are talking of. Say you talk of textile, shoes, garments, some auto parts.
Yeah.
So they have been given. And more importantly is, I think, let me compliment our negotiators that the Indian interest in this have been protected like never before, and maybe we protected in some other agreements, but say like agriculture and dairy we could protect. This thing is, I think, very, very important, wherein as you are, some countries are getting stubborn for getting market access, in India and maybe in other countries. For us it was very sensitive because, almost 8 to 10 crore people, the families live on, dairy and all other sector. 45% of the population of this country is dependent on. So that we have done. So,
but Professor, have we protected our interests on dairy? Have they been factored in? Because if cheap dairy products come in,
no, we have factored it. Dairy has been kept away from this agreement. It seems so.
Okay.
But anyway, the agreement has to come. We are waiting for that.
Okay.
But I think it seems so that we could be able to, manage dairy out of this agreement.
Right.
And more importantly, what you are right is the Britain is today's. If you see any of the British newspapers, they are saying a big win for Britain. The British Prime Minister said big win. because what they say is the Indian products going there duty free improves the purchasing power of the British people and put more money in their pocket.
Okay.
We also have with us Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar, former senior diplomat, joining us. Thank you very much, Ambassador Sajanhar. So it looks like this is all about the trade deal, but the relationship is far broader than that. And we were talking about the Indian diaspora also playing a significant role. How do you view this partnership going forward? With this agreement in place, giving a boost to the other sectors of the relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Mark, for having me. You're very right. Of course, as far as the India-UK FTA is concerned, that is really what one would say the cherry on the pudding, that is the shining star. And, that will take all the limelight and all the discussions and commentaries. But, of course, the relationship is much broader, much wider than that. And I think that has been quite evident. You mentioned about the diaspora. We have about 1.86 million people there. All of them are professionals. All of them are very well to do. And in fact, before the United Kingdom came out of the European Union, it was a part of the EU before 2016, and particularly before 1st January 2020, when the Brexit really came into effect. For Indian companies, this was the route to reach the European market, the continental market. So now, of course, whether it is all these big companies, particularly if you look at the Tatas, they are there in a very big way. And the United Kingdom was seen as the launch pad to get to the European Union, because I think there is so much of history, there's so much of comfort level with the United Kingdom. That having been said, diaspora is very important, and diaspora has been, in my view, leveraged in a very significant manner ever since Prime Minister Modi came to power. You see that wherever he goes, he addresses huge crowds of the diaspora. And of course, they are extremely proud of what India has been able to do, India has been able to achieve, not only economically, from being the 10th or 11th largest economy just about 10, 11 years ago to become the 4th largest economy today, and to become, on way to becoming the 3rd largest economy in another 2 years. So I think not only in that, but also in terms of the respect, the clout, the influence, the profile of India globally, I think that makes them extremely happy. But, Mark, coming to the other comment that you made, it is very right. I think it is, we should not reduce this relationship only to a trading relationship or an investment relationship, although that's very important. 55 to $60 billion of bilateral trade, services being about 58% of our engagement with the United Kingdom as compared to 42%, while normally it is always the reverse. You look at the United States, you look at Japan, all the other engagements, it is always the goods that are in a much larger number, and services is comparatively a smaller component, but here it is the other way around. So the services are going to help us a great deal, not only the information technology, but also professional services, architecture, legal, also the fintech. So I think there is a great deal that is in store going forward. We are looking at doubling our engagement, our trade engagement, over the next 5 to 10 years. And in addition to that, of course, we have areas like defense, we have areas like critical minerals, high technology, we have areas like education, we have areas like healthcare, and of course, what was signed last year, the Technology Security Initiative, under which whether it is AI or quantum computing, there are so many areas where both the countries can work together to take a leadership role as far as technology sectors are concerned.
Okay.
Mark.
Ambassador, this is Amrit here.
Hi, Amrit.
Hi, sir. Sir, we have a strategic, comprehensive strategic partnership with the United Kingdom. What does that mean? One-on-one meeting with the Prime Minister. So these are visuals that this meeting took a little while back. We were earlier. Prime Minister Modi was received by Prime Minister Kalistanis, and right now
we'll wait for these visuals to play out because currently it seems to be only on. In fact, he's speaking. Let's listen.
In the pockets of working people. It is good for jobs, it is good for business, cutting tariffs and making trade cheaper, quicker and easier.
और दोनों ही देश साथ में काम करके wages बढ़ेंगी और वहाँ पे living standard भी बढ़ेंगी और लोगों के हिस्से में बहुत पैसे आएंगे और ये काम और व्यापार के लिए अच्छी होगी। वो टैरिफ काटने से ट्रेड सस्ता होगा और सहज होगा और सही होगा और सही होगा।
It is good for British workers in cutting-edge manufacturing, whisky distillers across Scotland, and the service sector in London, in Manchester and in Leeds.
और ये ब्रिटिश कामदारों के लिए बहुत अच्छी होगी वो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में आगे बढ़ के जैसे विस्की डिस्टिलरी है स्कॉटलैंड में और लंदन में मैनचेस्टर और लीड्स में सर्विस सेक्टर है और जो लोग इसका उपयोग करते हैं यहाँ यूके में इंडियन सामान अच्छे दामों में मिलके।
It is good for consumers because it will bring down prices on Indian goods in the United Kingdom, like clothes and shoes and food, and it will deliver benefits for the long term. It will add about £4.8 billion to the UK economy every year and £2.2 billion to wages and hundreds of millions of pounds to regions and nations up and down the United Kingdom.
और ये apologies. ये इंडिया और यहाँ के कंज्यूमर के लिए बहुत अच्छा रहेगा और ये दोनों देशों में जो बातचीत होगी ट्रेड होगी जो बढ़ेगा।
Don't bother, we can use English words in between. Don't worry about it.
Sorry, His Excellency, I've lost the speech.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Sorry, do you want me to repeat? Yes, okay. I think we understand each other well. I mean, look, and we both know this is the biggest and most economically significant trade deal that the UK has made since leaving the EU. And I think I can say that it's one of the most comprehensive deals that India has ever done. So thank you, Prime Minister, for your leadership and for your pragmatism. And I'd like to thank everybody who's worked so hard to get this deal over the line.
और आज ये जो बहुत बड़ी कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव डील तैयार की है और कामयाब की है उसके लिए मैं आपको बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया कहना चाहता हूँ प्राइम मिनिस्टर साहब और ये दोनों टीम जहाँ काम करके ये जो काम पूरा किया है इसके लिए मैं बहुत खुशी हूँ।
And, you know, as I've said before, and as we were just discussing in our tete-a-tete, we've entered a new global era, and that is one that requires us to step up, not to stand aside, to deliver for the British people by building deeper partnerships and alliances. And today is very much confirmation of that approach.
और अभी वहाँ पे बात सब कर रहे थे आपके साथ बैठ के हमने बातें की कि नई ग्लोबल इरा पैदा करनी है और इसके लिए हमको सब कुछ करना है जो हम सक्षम है जिसके बाद ब्रिटिश लोगों को यहाँ पे बहुत ही बड़ी पार्टनरशिप मिलेगी आपके देश से और यहाँ पे जो हम करने वाले हैं उससे दोनों देशों को फायदा होगा.
And the UK has been negotiating a deal like this for many years, but it is this government that got it done. And with it, we're sending a very powerful message that Britain is open for business. And that is already generating huge confidence. Today we're announcing nearly £6 billion in investment and export wins between India and the United Kingdom, creating over 2,200 jobs for British workers.
और ये जो ऐसी नेगोशिएशन मैं पहले बहुत की है, पर ये जो अभी हमने किया है ये बहुत ही बड़ा होगा, क्योंकि ब्रिटिश लोगों को और संसार को ये जानेंगे कि ब्रिटेन इज ओपन फॉर बिजनेस, व्यापार के लिए खुला है. और ये ब्रिटिश लोगों के लिए भी बहुत अच्छा होगा, क्योंकि ये 6 बिलियन पाउंड्स के 6 बिलियन पाउंड्स यहाँ पे नहीं पैदा होगा. और यूके और इंडिया ने जो ये साथ काम करने का निर्णय किया है, इससे 2,200 जॉब्स ही पैदा होंगे यहाँ पे.
But of course, as we've discussed this morning, this is not the extent or the limit of our collaboration with India. We have unique bonds of history, of family, and of culture. And we want to strengthen our relationship further so that it is even more ambitious, modern, and focused on the long term, the step up in the relationship that we discussed in the autumn of last year. And that's why, alongside this trade deal, I am delighted that we're building on our partnership by launching our India-UK Vision 2035 strategy, pledging to work more closely on areas such as defence, migration, climate, education and health.
और इस सुबह जब हमने बात की थी कि एक आपस के साथ कोलैबोरेट करेंगे, इससे ये साबित होता है कि हम लोग अपनी इतिहास, फैमिली और संस्कृति को बहुत ही मजबूत बनाना चाहते हैं, और जो मजबूत रहा है. और इसीलिए भविष्य में हम ये दोस्ती, ये रिश्ता स्टेप अप करना चाहते हैं. वो ट्रेड डील बना के और इंडिया और यूके 2035 विजन के आधार में वो जो डिफेंस है, माइग्रेशन है, एजुकेशन है, उस पे ध्यान देके.
We will also build on the fantastic work we already do in technology and innovation, celebrating the one-year anniversary of the landmark Technology Security Initiative and making the most of the opportunities it represents for both of our countries.
और टेक्नोलॉजी और इनोवेशन के क्षेत्र में भी अभी एक पहली एनिवर्सरी मनाया है जो हमने, वो टेक्नोलॉजी, इनोवेशन, सिक्योरिटी के आधार पे है, और ये आगे बढ़ेगा, इसका पूरा विश्वास है.
Mr. Prime Minister, we've had much to talk about today and much to celebrate. And I look forward to our continued work together as we strengthen security, growth and prosperity for working people in both of our nations. So let me now hand over to you to say a few words, and thank you again for your leadership on this.
Thank you. Thank you. प्रधानमंत्री स्टार्मर, फ्रेंड्स, नमस्कार.
Prime Minister Starmer, friends, namaskar, good morning.
सबसे पहले मैं प्रधानमंत्री स्टार्मर के गर्मजोशी भरे स्वागत सत्कार के लिए हार्दिक आभार व्यक्त करता हूं. आज हमारे संबंधों में एक ऐतिहासिक दिवस है. मुझे प्रसन्नता है कि कई वर्षों की मेहनत के बाद आज दोनों देशों के बीच कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इकोनॉमिक एंड ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट संपन्न हुआ है.
First of all, let me extend my heartfelt gratitude to Prime Minister Starmer for the warm welcome and gracious hospitality. Today marks a historic day in our bilateral relations. I am pleased to note that after many years of hard work, the comprehensive economic and trade agreement between our two countries has been concluded today.
यह समझौता मात्र आर्थिक साझेदारी नहीं बल्कि साझा समृद्धि की योजना है। एक और भारतीय टेक्सटाइल, फुटवियर, जेम्स एंड ज्वेलरी, सी फूड और इंजीनियरिंग गुड्स को यूके में बेहतर मार्केट एक्सेस मिलेगा। भारत के एग्रीकल्चर, प्रोड्यूस और प्रोसेस्ड फूड इंडस्ट्री के लिए यूके की मार्केट में नए अवसर बनेंगे। भारत के युवाओं, किसानों, मछुआरों और एमएसएमई सेक्टर के लिए यह समझौता विशेष रूप से लाभकारी सिद्ध होगा। वहीं दूसरी ओर भारत के लोगों और इंडस्ट्री के लिए यूके में बने प्रोडक्ट्स जैसे मेडिकल डिवाइसेस और एरोस्पेस पार्ट्स सुलभ और किफायती दरों पर उपलब्ध हो सकेंगे।
This agreement does not merely pave way for economic partnership, but is also a blueprint for our shared prosperity. On the one hand, Indian textiles, footwear, gems and jewelry, seafood, engineering goods will get better market access in the UK. Indian agricultural products, processed food industry will find new opportunities in UK's market. This agreement will prove especially beneficial for India's youth, farmers, fishermen and MSME sector. On the other hand, people and industries in India will be able to access products made in the UK, such as medical devices and aerospace parts at affordable and attractive prices.
इस समझौते के साथ ही डबल कंट्रीब्यूशन कन्वेंशन पर भी सहमति बनी है। इससे दोनों के सर्विस सेक्टर, विशेषकर टेक्नोलॉजी और फाइनेंस के उसको एक नई ऊर्जा मिलेगी। ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस को गति मिलेगी। कॉस्ट ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस घटेगा और कॉन्फिडेंस ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस बढ़ेगा। साथ ही यूके की अर्थव्यवस्था को भारतीय स्किल टैलेंट मिलेगा। इन समझौतों से दोनों देशों में निवेश बढ़ेगा और रोजगार के नए अवसर बनेंगे। इतना ही नहीं, दो लोकतांत्रिक देशों और विश्व की दो बड़ी इकोनॉमीज के बीच हुए यह समझौते वैश्विक स्थिरता और समृद्धि को भी बल देंगे।
Along with this agreement, we also have reached a consensus on the Double Contribution Convention. This will inject new energy into the service sectors of both countries, especially in technology and finance. It will promote ease of doing business, reduce cost of doing business, and increase the confidence of doing business. Additionally, UK's economy would benefit from India's skilled talent. These agreements will enhance investments and generate new employment opportunities in both countries. Moreover, as agreements reached between two democracies and two of the world's major economies, they will lend support to global stability and global prosperity.
Friends, अगले दशक में हमारी कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप को नई गति और ऊर्जा देने के लिए विजन 2035 जारी किया जा रहा है। यह टेक्नोलॉजी, डिफेंस, क्लाइमेट, एजुकेशन और पीपल टू पीपल कनेक्ट के क्षेत्रों में एक मजबूत, भरोसेमंद और महत्वाकांक्षी साझेदारी का रोड मैप बनेगा।
Friends, to give new momentum and energy to our comprehensive strategic partnership in the coming decade, today we are launching our Vision 2035. Vision 2035 is a roadmap that will form the basis of a strong, trustworthy, and ambitious partnership in the fields of technology, defense, climate, education, and people-to-people connect.
डिफेंस और सिक्योरिटी में साझेदारी के लिए डिफेंस इंडस्ट्रियल रोड मैप बनाया गया है। हमारी टेक्नोलॉजी सिक्योरिटी इनिशिएटिव को और मजबूत करने पर काम किया जाएगा। इट इज अवर कमिटमेंट दैट फ्रॉम एआई टू क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स, सेमीकंडक्टर्स टू साइबर सिक्योरिटी, we shall create the future together.
A defense industrial roadmap has also been drawn up for partnership in defense and security. Work will continue on strengthening our technology security initiative. It is our commitment that from AI to critical minerals, from semiconductors to cybersecurity, we shall create the future together.
Friends, शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में भी दोनों देश मिलकर एक नया चैप्टर लिख रहे हैं। यूके की 6 यूनिवर्सिटीज भारत में कैंपस खोल रही हैं। पिछले हफ्ते ही भारत के गुरुग्राम शहर में साउथ हैम्पटन यूनिवर्सिटी कैंपस का उद्घाटन हुआ है।
Friends, in the field of education too, we are writing a new chapter together. 6 universities of the UK are opening their campuses in India. Just last week, the University of Southampton inaugurated its campus in the city of Gurugram in India.
Friends, पहलगाम में हुए आतंकवादी हमले की कठोर निंदा के लिए हम प्रधानमंत्री स्टारमर और उनकी सरकार का आभार व्यक्त करते हैं। हम एक मत हैं कि आतंकवाद के खिलाफ लड़ाई में दोहरे मापदंडों का कोई स्थान नहीं है। हम इस बात पर भी सहमत हैं कि एक्सट्रीमिस्ट विचारधारा वाली शक्तियों को डेमोक्रेटिक फ्रीडम का दुरुपयोग नहीं करने दिया जा सकता। Those who misuse democratic freedoms to undermine democracy itself must be held account. इकोनॉमिक ऑफेंडर्स के प्रत्यार्पण के विषय पर भी हमारी एजेंसी सहयोग और समन्वय से काम करती रहेगी।
Friends, we thank the Prime Minister and his government for strong condemnation of the terrorist attack in Pahalgam. We are united in the belief that there is no place for double standards in the fight against terrorism. We also agree that the forces which espouse extremist ideologies should not be allowed to misuse democratic freedoms. Those who misuse democratic freedoms to undermine democracy itself must be held to account. Our security agencies will continue to enhance cooperation and coordination on matters such as the extradition of economic offenders.
Friends, इंडो-पैसिफिक में शांति और स्थिरता, यूक्रेन में चल रहे संघर्ष और पश्चिम एशिया की स्थिति पर हम विचार साझा करते रहे हैं। हम जल्द से जल्द शांति और स्थिरता की बहाली का समर्थन करते हैं। सभी देशों की संप्रभुता और क्षेत्रीय अखंडता का सम्मान अनिवार्य है। आज के युग की मांग विस्तारवाद नहीं, विकासवाद ही है।
Friends, we have continued to exchange views on peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, and the situation in West Asia. We support early restoration of peace and stability. Respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries is essential. Today's era demands development, not expansionism.
Friends, पिछले महीने अहमदाबाद में हुई दुर्घटना में मारे गए लोगों में कई यूके के नागरिक भाई बहन भी थे। उनके परिवार वालों के प्रति हम संवेदनाएं प्रकट करते हैं। यूके में रहने वाले भारतीय मूल के लोग हमारे संबंधों में एक लिविंग ब्रिज का काम करते हैं। They did not just bring curry from India, but also creativity, commitment and character. इनका योगदान सिर्फ यूके की समृद्ध इकोनॉमी तक सीमित नहीं है, बल्कि यूके के कल्चर, स्पोर्ट्स और पब्लिक सर्विस में भी दिखता है.
Friends, last month in the unfortunate plane crash in Ahmedabad, our sisters and brothers of the UK were among those who lost their lives. I would like to express my deepest condolences to the families of the victims. The people of Indian origin in the UK form a living bridge that connects our two nations. They did not just bring curry from India, but also creativity, commitment, and character. Their immense contributions are not just limited to UK's prosperous economy, but are also visible in UK's culture, sports, and public service.
Friends, जब भारत और यूके मिले और वह भी टेस्ट सीरीज के दौरान, तो क्रिकेट का उल्लेख तो करना ही पड़ता है. For both of us, cricket is not just a game, but a passion, and also a great metaphor for our partnership. There may be a swing and a miss at times, but we always play with a straight bat. We are committed to building high-scoring, solid partnership. आज संपन्न हुए समझौते और विजन 2035 इसी स्पिरिट को आगे बढ़ाने वाले माइलस्टोन है.
Friends, I would be remiss not to mention cricket when India and the UK are coming together, especially during a test series. For both of us, cricket is not just a game, but a passion, and also a great metaphor for our partnership. There may be a swing and a miss at times, but we always play with a straight bat. We are committed to building a high-scoring, solid partnership. The agreements concluded today and Vision 2035 are milestones which advance this very spirit.
प्रधानमंत्री जी, मैं एक बार फिर आपके आतिथ्य सत्कार के लिए आभार व्यक्त करता हूं. मैं आपको भारत यात्रा करने का निमंत्रण भी देता हूं और आशा करता हूं कि हमें शीघ्र ही भारत में आपका स्वागत करने का अवसर मिलेगा. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद.
Prime Minister, I thank you once again for your warm hospitality. I would also like to take this opportunity to extend an equally warm invitation to you to visit India. I am eagerly looking forward to hosting you in India very, very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so this is Prime Ministers Narendra Modi and Keir Starmer at the Chequers estate giving out their press statements. If I could quickly summarize what the two leaders said. Excuse me. First, Keir Starmer spoke. Prime Minister Starmer said that the trade agreement, or the CETA as it's called, Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement, signed between the two countries today, will help in creating jobs in the United Kingdom, though just about 2,200 jobs, not many, but he said it will be good for the manufacturing sector. He pointed out, say, scotch or whiskey coming from Scotland, or products manufactured in Manchester, which will get access to Indian markets. He said about $6 billion of investment it will contribute about 6 billion pounds to the UK, of which 408 billion pounds in just the trade itself. Then he said it's good for British consumers as they get access to Indian goods. He said the significant, in fact, he very significantly said that this may be the most significant trade deal that the United Kingdom has made since leaving the European Union. And he said it will lead to deeper partnership. He said we want to strengthen our relationship, keeping in mind the India-UK Vision 2035, not just in trade, but in defense, migration, education, technology, and innovation. So that's a gist of what Prime Minister Starmer said. Prime Minister Modi, on his part, called it the CETA, a historic economic partnership. He said UK products like processed foods, medical devices, aerospace parts, etc., will be available in India. He said Indian textiles, gems, stones, and other products produced in India will have access, will be available in the UK market. He spoke about the defense and security relationship. He said the defense industrial roadmap is key to the technological industrial security revolution taking place in the two countries, between the two countries. He said AI to critical minerals, semiconductors to cyber security. He said we shall together create the future. All right, now these are visuals that we are getting from the Chequers estate, where Minister Piyush Goyal and his counterpart in the United Kingdom have just signed the CETA, or the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement, FTA as we generically called it. So the two ministers signing, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and his counterpart in the United Kingdom, signing and exchanging the historic trade deal, which took more than a decade to be signed, called CETA, the Comprehensive Trade Agreement, Economic Trade Agreement, which is being billed as a game changer.
Jonathan Reynolds is the name of the Trade Secretary of the UK.
Could you say that again,
The
Mark?
Secretary of the State for Business and Trade. That's what his designation is, Jonathan Reynolds.
Okay, Jonathan Reynolds and Minister Piyush Goyal, after signing the CETA, or the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement, sometime back at the Chequers estate, after which the Prime Minister, so these are visuals from some time back, this was concluded today as the two Prime Ministers gave their political nod to it, and the two ministers then formally signed this agreement, which was negotiated for over a decade. Coming back to what Prime Minister Modi was... Okay. Oh, all right. So let's listen in to what the Prime Minister had to say after the signing of the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement, when he made the press statement at the Chequers estate along with Prime Minister Keir Starmer a little while back. Could I request my producer to please play that?
ये समझो